Hey guys, Walter with the Black Film Guild. And today I have another question for you guys. So we had a question here from Joe, and he wants to know what the downside is to using a DSLR, and why I use a C300 Mark II, because it seems like such a huge rig. So it's a really big question, and I think that people are going to disagree and agree with what I have to say. And that's part of growing, is that people can have disagreements but continue to grow together with it. So for me, there's definitely some huge benefits with DSLRs, right? And it has to do, I think for me personally, it has to do with where you are in your filmmaking journey and where you are, what you want to achieve, more or less, right? So to me, DSLRs are great filmmaking tools, right? They're small, they're lightweight, they have a ton of different configurations. They produce a quality image. They can be more inexpensive, and they can be a great tool to create a film. So, I used DSLRs up until probably 3 years ago or so, and I had a great time with them. They were great for what they were. And also another thing is that they offer a hybrid where you can take photos whenever you want to take a photo. And I still use mine occasionally, not so much anymore. And it's mainly because I think I've outgrown it in some ways, and I think I needed other tools that the DSLR really didn't provide me, unless I was gonna rig it out to be this huge thing that ends up being a larger camera, right? So for me, what are some of the issues that I had with DSLRs? Well, the biggest thing for me was I ended up spending more time trying to customize the DSLR to do what I needed a video camera to actually do, right? So prior to when I started in like 2011 using DSLRs, maybe 2011, yeah, about 2011, it was a tool because filmmaking at the next level, right, with like cinematic looks was way too expensive, right? In order to get a cinematic look, you had to spend $25,000, $30,000 minimum, right? Because they had the camcorders, right? But those were really like, they didn't give you that cinematic look, right? You had a one lens on there, and it was kind of this variable lens, and it was more like an E&G style lens, right? More like a news gathering lens versus those cinematic cameras, which you can detach different lenses on. When DSLRs came out, they offered that flexibility to create that cinematic look with the detachable lenses, the still camera lenses, right? And so that was a great look. And that was phenomenal for what it was when I was filming in that way. As I've grown in my career and done more client work, it doesn't look as professional when you come to a paid gig, right, with a small camera. That's the biggest thing for me that I've learned over the course of my filmmaking career. So if somebody's paying you $30,000, this is a number, for example. Let's say somebody's paying you $30,000 to come film a shoot, right, for an informational kind of video for a corporation. They want a professional, polished look, and you might have the lighting equipment, you might be able to do the things. But if you come to that gig with a $2,000 camera or a DSLR that someone might have, let's say for example, one of the producers actually has that same camera and they're paying you $30,000, how do you think that makes you look? How do you think that they're gonna feel about paying you that kind of money? It's part of, it has to do a little bit with your brand and your image, right? If you're gonna bring a DSLR to a $30,000 shoot and it's rigged out and it looks kind of cool, but it's a small camera, they're not gonna take you as seriously as someone who brings a grip, who brings a C300 Mark II, or who brings an Alexa, right? One of these larger, more serious cameras to a video shoot of a larger production, if they're gonna be paying you money. And so one of the things that I've noticed is that if you want to continue to grow in the filmmaking space, you're gonna have to eventually mature into using more cinematic and more professional grade filmmaking equipment. Another reason I think to do that, another reason why I think it's really important to actually upgrade and do those things or upgrade to the next level of cameras is because if you ever want to start working with other people and collaborating, you're not going to be able to know how to use those types of cameras if you're still using a DSLR. So if you're working on set and somebody's talking about they need you to gen lock the cameras, you're not going to know what that is because you've never done it before. And you can't know how to do it because you're still working on DSLRs. That makes total sense, doesn't it? If somebody is going to be telling you that you need to do certain things that these larger format cameras can do, and you don't actually understand the different configurations that larger format cameras have, then you're going to be behind the curve. You might be very good with your one camera, but that's all you're good at. You don't know about some of the fundamentals with larger cameras. And that can be a deterrent for working with other people, working on different sets, collaborating with people, all these types of things, right? If somebody says, for example, somebody asks me that they need me to work on a shoot with an Alexa, I'm not going to come in there unfamiliar because I've actually worked with one. I know how to work with one, right? So if you've never had that experience, you're either going to go and not know what you're doing and get fired or not be called back again, or you're going to have experience with larger cameras and continue to grow within that larger camera ecosystem and continue to grow in that manner. And that's one of the reasons why I think that eventually upgrading, eventually maturing into the larger format cameras is wise. And that's just one of the reasons as far as a business aspect, in my opinion. And that's just my personal opinion through personal growth in this situation, in this environment. Another big reason for me personally is that there's an ease of use with larger cameras where everything is coming together without having to add on different things. So one of the big things for me with the C300 Mark II, the reason why I use it is because everything that I need is pretty much built into the camera. So I need XLR outputs for good audio. It's right there, right? I need ND filters on the go so I don't have to screw on something on the end of my camera. It's one button and I have 2 stops of ND with one button. You can't do that on a DSLR. Right now you can. They're going to be upgrading them to where I think you can actually add in slots. I think the new Canon RFs have that where you can add on the slots. But that's something that you get when you have a larger camera. Usually you have different options for screens, right? On there, and you also have all the different outputs that you're going to need that you might need on set. So all these different things play a role. For me personally, I'm happy that I upgraded when I did. I'm happy that I matured to the cinema ecosystem versus staying in the DSLR when I did, because from the DSLR you can take a lot of what you know and what you've learned onto the more cinema cameras, but then also you can learn the different nuances of using a cinema camera, and then you can take your filmmaking to the next level with some of those new capabilities. This is not knocking DSLRs in any way. I still love using DSLRs, but I think that there's a need for both based on where you are in your filmmaking career. If you still like filming with DSLRs, that's great, that's phenomenal. If you are a filmmaker who does gigs and you use your DSLR and your clients don't mind, that's great, that's phenomenal. But I think that when you reach a certain level, $50,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 shoots, and you come to those kind of shoots with a DSLR, it's gonna look bad. I think it'll look bad. If somebody came to me with a DSLR and I'm paying you $50,000 or $100,000, I would probably cancel the contract. I would. I think that for me, it would signal that the person is not as serious necessarily as the amount of money that I'm paying for. That's just me personally, but everybody has their own opinion. So that's kind of the reason why I have the C300 Mark II. I think that it offers a lot of different capabilities. It offers a great learning experience, and it offers great teaching capability as well. So now when I go teach for the Black Film Guild or do workshops, and the different students want to learn or want to know about these cameras that they've never seen or never had the opportunity to work with, now I have a camera that they can play with, that they can learn about, that they can see why it's important to have something like this versus a smaller camera, or vice versa, have the DSLR versus the large camera. There's a need for all these things, and I think that for me right now, this is where I am in my filmmaking journey, and I love it, and I hope that if you are thinking about maybe getting a more cinema camera, a great camera to start with, I think, would be the C100 Mark II. That was my first my first delve into like the more cinematic ecosystem with having everything on board. And after I had that, I never looked back. It's phenomenal. You can rig it however you want. It can be small, it can be large. And now I'm at kind of at the C300 Mark II. You know, it's broadcast ready. I can go shoot freelance if I want for different networks. I have my own camera, right? So if I want to, if Lifetime happens to call me up, or if the home network, or the what's the name of that? Is it HCG? Whatever the home station is, they use C300 Mark IIs. Hey Walter, we need an extra shooter. Is there any way you can come out and shoot? I'm there, right? If you have a DSLR, you can't do that. You're not broadcast ready. You're not, your camera is not capable of shooting what they actually need. And they're not gonna take you on their gig. So there's opportunities also to grow. There's opportunities for more work. There's opportunities for more money. This is just all the different types of reasons why I chose to upgrade. Depending on where you are on your filmmaking journey, you don't have to upgrade. You can stay where you are. It's up to you. But that's what I think about the whole thing. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who disagree. And that's kind of what I like to do here. I like to talk about things. I like to learn from you guys. A lot of people out there probably know way more than me. And I love to hear what you guys have to say and maybe talk about it a little bit more in detail. So please feel free to leave a comment below. Remember to like and subscribe too, and I hope to see you guys again here soon.